Hello Year 8, and it's time to read the next section of the story that we started to read last lesson that was called The Landlady by Roald Dahl. Now, remember the main focus of last lesson was how Roald Dahl created a sense of foreboding, and indeed that was the key word from last lesson. Now remember that foreboding is the way in which a writer suggests to the reader that something isn't quite right, done mostly through descriptions of the setting or indeed of characters. Now, in The Landlady, Billy Weaver, where we left the story off, seemed to be compelled to press the bell at the bed and breakfast hotel, just as he was considering whether to move on to check out the pub, the Bell and Dragon up the road. Now, the next bit of the story that we're going to read focuses on Billy's first encounter with the landlady. So, as you listen, I want you all to think very carefully about how this woman is presented in this section of the story, both in how she is described, but also what she says, how she speaks. The first task of the lesson will look closely at how the landlady is presented here, so make sure you are listening carefully. Normally, you ring the bell and you have at least a half-minute's wait before the door opens, but this dame was like a jack-in-the-box. He pressed the bell and out she popped. It made him jump. She was about 45 or 50 years old, and the moment she saw him, she gave him a warm, welcoming smile. "Please come in," she said pleasantly. She stepped aside, holding the door wide open, and Billy found himself automatically moving forwards into the house. The compulsion, or more accurately, the desire to follow after her into the house was extraordinarily strong. "I saw the notice in the window," he said, holding himself back. "Yes, I know. I was wondering about a room." "It's all ready for you, my dear," she said. She had a round pink face and very gentle blue eyes. "I was on my way to the Bell and Dragon," Billy told her, "but the notice in your window just happened to catch my eye." "My dear boy," she said, "why don't you come in out of the cold?" "How much do you charge?" "5 and 6pence a night, including breakfast." It was fantastically cheap. It was less than half of what he'd been willing to pay. "If that's too much," she added, "then perhaps I can reduce it just a tiny bit. Do you desire an egg for breakfast? Eggs are so expensive at the moment. It would be 6pence less without the egg." "5 and 6pence is fine," he answered. "I should like very much to stay here." "I knew you would. Do come in." She seemed terribly nice. She looked exactly like the mother of your best school friend, welcoming you into the house to stay for the Christmas holidays. Billy took off his hat and stepped over the threshold. "Just hang it there," she said, "and let me help you with your coat." There were no other hats or coats in the hall. There were no umbrellas, no walking sticks, nothing. "We have it all to ourselves," she said, smiling at him over her shoulder as she led the way upstairs. "You see, it isn't very often I have the pleasure of taking a visitor into my little nest." The old girl is slightly dotty, Billy told himself, but at 5 and 6pence a night, who gives a damn about that? "I should have thought you'd be swamped with applicants," he said politely. "Oh, I am, my dear, I am, of course I am. But the trouble is, I'm inclined to be just a teensy-wincy bit choosy about who I let stay, if you see what I mean." "Ah, yes. But I'm always ready. Everything is always ready, day and night. Just on the off chance that an acceptable young gentleman will come along. And it is such a pleasure, my dear, such a very great pleasure when now and again I open the door and I see someone standing there who is just exactly right." She was halfway up the stairs, and she paused, with one hand on the stair rail, turning her head and smiling down at him with pale lips. "Like you," she added, and her blue eyes travelled slowly all the way down the length of Billy's body to his feet and then up again. On the first floor landing, she said to him, "This floor's mine." They climbed up a second flight. "And this one is all yours," she said. "Here's your room. I do hope you'll like it." She took him into a small but charming bedroom, switching on the light as she went in. Now, pause the story there, and I want to talk about what you're going to do for the rest of this lesson. The landlady is friendly and welcoming. Yet, once again, there are perhaps hints of a sense of foreboding, the key word again. Hints that something isn't quite right. Now, we get that sense through some subtle hints in Roald Dahl's description of her and in what she says. So, for this lesson, there are 2 tasks on the slides shared with you. The first task asks you to complete a table locating and filling in quotations from this section of the story that suggests that something isn't quite right, or indeed that the landlady is really friendly. Now, importantly, I want you to think about the connotations of the words in the quotations that you choose. The second task in the slides is a short piece of writing. Now, everyone has heard of the website TripAdvisor and what it's for. So people visit the website for reviews of places that they're thinking of staying the night in or of visiting. Now, your task is to write a review of the bed and breakfast based on what we have learned about this hotel so far in the story. What would you think of it as a customer? There is a document in the instructions box that links you to a copy of what we've read of the story so far. And your challenge is to include details about the hotel in your review that have been included in the story. So, crack on with that Year 8, and I'll be online throughout the lesson to answer questions.